Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone, and good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another Dhamma Q&A session series. Today, day 16, and in today's discussion, we will be discussing about consciousness, viññāṇa, more specifically, the context of paticca samuppada. So, paticca samuppada has its own consciousness description, exposition. So, today we will be discussing what consciousness means in the context of paticca samuppada. But before I discuss viññāṇa under the paticca samuppada context, I thought it would be nice to discuss this term viññāṇa and what it means in the Sutta Pitaka. Especially viññāṇa has a couple meanings as sankhara, which we discussed last week. So I would tell you that viññāṇa is one of the overlapping words used to refer to the mind, because in Buddhist teachings we have three terms that have been used in a kind of a non-technical way. We know it is viññāṇa, consciousness, mano, which means mind, chitta, thought. So viññāṇa, mano, chitta. So these three terms that have been used for the mind have been non-technically used. At the same time, they have been overlap, especially when you don't know the specific meaning of these words. They all refer to something about the mind. So let's take a look at some of the very key understanding of these three terms. Now, viññāṇa refers to an awareness through a specific internal sense space. Now, this again takes us to Abhidhamma. I wanted to share with you some of the fundamental meanings of viññāṇa according to the Abhidhamma today as a part of Chitta Viti. Not to talk about all Abhidhamma things, but you can't talk about viññāṇa without Abhidhamma. So viññāṇa refers to an awareness which you take, which a being takes through any of the sense bases, be that eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. So, more importantly, in the Abhidhamma, viññāṇa. Now, when your sensitivity of any sense basis, are being, impinged with an object through the power of the avajjana chitta, because we know there is an object. Let's say there is an image, and I have my piece of eyes. So my piece of eyes, the sensitive part of my piece of eyes, we call it cakkupasada, and I see the image over there. My piece of eyes, especially the sensitivity of my, we call it cakkupasada, cannot take that image without the support of another thought, which is called by avajjana chitta. So avajjana chitta, which means adverting consciousness, connects that image to my piece of eyes. In the same way, if you take your ears and a sound is an object, and that sound cannot be impinged on your ears without the support of the sota avajjana chitta, which means the adverting consciousness of the ear. So now you understand that viññāṇa means is a sort of a development of your thought process under the Chitta Viti. What viññāṇa does is, viññāṇa takes a thought that is processed before the viññāṇa level, which happens through between a sense faculty and an object with support of an avajjana, what you call by adverting thought, and then the viññāṇa processes that particular thought to a further level. So in this case, what we understand, this is Abhidhamma. This is actually what happens to the viññāṇa. Actually, viññāṇa. Even though you are having viññāṇa, you still don't understand, according to the Abhidhamma, because only you understand what is happening at the level of Vottapana. Vottapana means you get to understand that here I have to decide whether I want to process this with my intention or not. So anyways, so what you need to understand at this basic level is viññāṇa is an awareness through a specific internal sense base. It could be eye, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. So that's it. Because we are still talking, we just started looking at the overlapping nature of these three Pali terms which speak of the mind, viññāṇa, mano, and chitta. Now, what is mano? What does mano mean? Mana clearly means the mind. So this is the mind that we have in this life. Now, I have a mind, you have a mind, and this mind disappears when the consciousness traverses when you die. So mind is a sense faculty that you have in a particular life. So are the animals. So every being has a mind that is specifically relevant to the particular life. And what is chitta? Chitta includes the formation of thoughts. Now, actually, chitta is a level of your mind where you construct, your volition. For example, if you go to Satipatthana Sutta, you can clearly see that there are many chittas. Whenever you have a thought of lust, thought of aversion, thought of delusion, which means your mind, with the support of viññāṇa, constructs chittas. So chitta is a term that speaks of the formation of thought, emotion, volition. I would say this is the subject of Buddhist mental development. So this is where we can take care of our mind, because through understanding our different thoughts, we can take care of our mind. So viññāṇa is a process that happens to your mind, and then that process will be constructed to a level of chitta where you can deal with it, or where you can deal with it. So this is how we're going to see viññāṇa, mana, chitta, these three terms which are highly overlapped in the teachings. We haven't still talked about what viññāṇa means in the Paටිsamuppada context. So if you talk a little bit further about the viññāṇa, viññāṇa is a single moment of conceptual consciousness, and normal mental activity is considered to consist of a continual succession of viññāṇa. So viññāṇa is a kind of a process. Now, I couldn't add the second part of the meaning of the viññāṇa. The first part is an awareness that happens through your sense activities. Second is viññāṇa is what goes through each life, which means it's the life continuum. Chittas can go, mana can go. So even the chitta is the product of your viññāṇa with the support of the mana, but the chitta stop, and then mana stops, and then viññāṇa continues. So that means the second important role of the viññāṇa exposition is that viññāṇa continues after you dies. So you will end your viññāṇa once you attain nibbana. All in all, viññāṇa has two components: the awareness itself. So it has an awareness, right? When it is with the eye, it is the eye consciousness. There is an awareness in your eyes. When it is with the ears, then it will become the awareness of your ears, so and so forth. So that's one component. Second, the object of that awareness, which might be a perception, a feeling, etc., which means on one side it is awareness, and on the other side it could be a perception, right? Because when you have viññāṇa, we know that it leads to sañña, because you have just a knowledge of something happen related to the particular sense faculty. Let's say if it is eye, you have an eye consciousness. That's it. You never know what it is. What is inside of that sight? It's a mere sight. I would say it's a mere sight. So then you will take that mere sight to the perception, right? So you never know what is inside unless you take it to the next level called sañña. So it is an awareness and maybe a perception too. Okay, those are two components. Okay, so there are a couple things we need to know before we jump into the big discussion of the viññāṇa related to the Paටිsamuppada. Now, viññāṇa arises. Pardon me. Viññāṇa. So the discussion of viññāṇa can be discussed in a couple ways. So one is viññāṇa being a derivative of the sense basis. Okay, so I would say it's kind of an ayatana. It's a base. Viññāṇa is a base. Viññānas do not arise without a base. Now, under that heading, we can talk about viññāṇa as a base, because viññāṇa cannot arise without a base. There should be eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. Whatever a base should be there to be the base for the viññāṇa to arise. So, viññāṇa must have a base to arise. And there are 6 types of viññānas, consciousnesses, and we already talked about them. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. And we need to understand, when we look at Paටිsamuppada, viññāṇa in the Paටිsamuppada, we will be talking that in great details, but just to give you kind of a heads up, viññāṇa in the Paටිsamuppada, dependent origination context, arises because of the sankhara. Because you carry kusala, wholesome, and akusala, or avyakata, I would say punyabhi sankhara, aninjabhi sankhara. So sankharas, you mean, I would say wholesome, unwholesome, wholesome activities. We call them punyabhi sankhara. Apunyabhi sankhara means unwholesome activities, and aninjabhi sankhara means activities done by the rupavachara, arupavachara, so-called higher beings, brahmas. Okay. So, because of sankhara, it conditions viññāṇa, and without viññāṇa, so because of the viññāṇa, craving arises one day, probably right after. So you have a viññāṇa, because this is the place where you get the mere understanding, mere image, mere sound, mere smell, mere taste, mere contact, and mere thought. If you don't get the mere level of any sense impressions, then you would never be into tanha, so that you will be into dukkha. So this is one context. Viññāṇa as a ayatana, sense base. Second, viññāṇa as a part of the 5 aggregates, panchakanda. We know there are 5 aggregates: rupa kanda, vedana kanda, sanya kanda, sankhara kanda, viññāṇa kanda. So viññāṇa kanda is viññāṇa. Now in here, what you can see is rupa means our material part, vedana means our feeling part, sanya means our perception part, sankhara means our formation part, viññāṇa means the conscious part. Now, without these 5, there will be no being. Beings are formed by the five aggregates. Actually, because of the viññāṇa, nama rupas arises, mind and body, right? In the Patisamuppada, it says Sankarapacchaya viññāṇa. Viññāṇa causes nama rupa to arise, okay, which means consciousness causes mind and matter to arise. At the same time, mind and matter, nama rupa causes viññāṇa to arise. So we call these two nidhanas, these two links, to be interdependent. Now, where are we going to find that? From the Patthana Pakarana in the Abhidhamma. In the Patthana Pakarana, we see the conditionality of different Dhamma phenomena. So in here, what we understand is sometimes Nama Rupa causes viññāṇa to arise, sometimes, or other times, viññāṇa causes Nama Rupa to arise. So normally what we can see is viññāṇa, causes Nama Rupa to arise. Right? Some scientific perspectives are in action at this point. Now, what they do with, with different creatures, sometimes they create some artificial animals and then they see the animal is getting a vitality. At that point, we can see Nama Rupa comes first and then the viññāṇa. It's kind of a debatable situation to talk about how Nama Rupa causes viññāṇa to arise, but normally viññāṇa causes Nama Rupa to arise. So anyways, viññāṇa is one of the key parts of the five aggregates, and you can see that as viññāṇa kanda. Dhamma folks, I also wanted to tell you that if you have any questions, please post them under the comments. I will take a look and answer them during the discussion. Now, in the Samyutta Nikaya 22.79, the Buddha distinguishes viññāṇa in the following manner. Why do you call it viññāṇa, consciousness? Because it cognizes. So viññāṇa has the ability of cognizing. Cognizing means you trying to understand what it is as a mere object. But viññāṇa doesn't understand everything regarding the particular object, just a mere understand. What does it cognize? It cognizes what is sour, bitter, pungent, sweet, salty, and unsalty, because it cognizes, it is called consciousness. This is one of the places we understand consciousness. Okay. So, in one of the books, famous books, we find out in the Theravada canon is Visuddhimagga, written by monk Buddhaghosa. And he has a nice analogy about viññāṇa and how does viññāṇa work. Now, it's about money. Now, when the money is given to a child, and when the money is given to an adult, and when the money is given to an expert, I would say a money changer, someone who knows money, maybe a banker, the sort of impression, the sort of understanding what the three people have during the time that they deal with the money is different. So this is what monk Buddhaghosa talks about, this particular subject, viññāṇa and other things. So he says the child's experience to the money is likened to perception. So when the child sees money, child has no idea of what it is, right? So maybe he knows a little bit, but he doesn't know what to do with this money, and all that stuff. So the monk Buddhaghosa says this understanding is like perception, saññā. So child's experience about the money is similar to perception. But the experience the adult is having about the money is likened to, I would say, similar to consciousness, viññāṇa. Now, there are different thoughts. Sometimes we understand because of consciousness, sanya arises. But in this example, we see that child's experience is similar to perception, and the adult's experience is similar to consciousness. And money changers experience, the one who, I would say, a banker, let's take a banker. The banker's experience to the money is the true understanding of the money, because he knows what currency this is and what can he do with the money and all that. So sanya, viññāṇa, and pañña. So I think we have to go beyond sanya and viññāṇa and then attain pañña. So this is what he may have suggested. Anyways, now I'm talking a little bit more about viññāṇa apart from the Parisamuppada context. But I wanted to give you some ideas about what viññāṇa is throughout the text. In another sutta called Aditta Pariyaya Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 35.28, Fire Sermon, the Buddha declares that the all is a flame. Now, what is all? It is not everything. All means Panchakanda, Rupakanda, Vedanakanda, Sanyakanda, Sankharakanda, Viññāṇakanda. So all these aggregates are in fire with passion, aversion, delusion, Ragadosa Moha, Lobadosa Moha. Because of Lobadosa Moha, those five are in fire. Now, just take an example now in our life, right? How do we spend the day? We are with so much lust, so much aversion, hatred, so much delusion. So we are in fire, even it is not physical fire. To obtain release from this suffering, one should become disenchanted with the all, which means Panchakanda, where we can see viññāṇa is a part of. So viññāṇa is in fire all the time, right? The third context that we can see is viññāṇa is a part of the Paටිsamuppada, which we are supposed to talk today. And when we talk about that, we can see that it has a different meaning. Now, the viññāṇa we understand in the Paටිsamuppada is a little different from what we see in the Sutta Pitaka. Now, in order to understand what Paටිsamuppada says about the viññāṇa, we have to get into a sutta, which clearly talks about the definition of viññāṇa in the Paටිsamuppada. So I will choose the sutta called Vibhanga Sutta, the same sutta which I used for Sankhara and Avijja before. Samyutta Nikaya 12.2, Vibhanga Sutta. Here we read this way. Katamancha bhikkhave viññāṇaṃ cha ime bhikkhave viññāṇa kaya chakku viññāṇaṃ sota viññāṇaṃ ghana viññāṇaṃ jivha viññāṇaṃ kaya viññāṇaṃ mano viññāṇaṃ idang bucchati bhikkhave viññāṇa. Now, what is viññāṇa? A lot of people think viññāṇa is just the 6 consciousness types: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. It is much more than that. This is what we learn here. Now, what we can understand from this definition about viññāṇa, about Paටිsamuppada is, here viññāṇa means the both Patisandhi Chitta, rebirth linking, I would say it is consciousness, rebirth linking consciousness, and viññāṇa sota. Now, you might be sort of confused about what I said. What are these two terms? What is Patisandhi Chitta? What will happen to us? Now, this is what we have to learn. Okay, when we die, that means the last moment that we all have, we call it Chuti Chitta, which means the death consciousness. Just as we spend the time, we have the normal thoughts, but at the moment of the death, finally, the last thought we will be having is the Chuti Chitta, death consciousness. Once we had the death consciousness, we are done, and our death consciousness traverses into another life and become the Patisandhi. It happens, and then it will become the Patisandhi Chitta. That means the first Chitta, the first consciousness we have in this life, in your life. Now you're born as a human in this life. The very first thought you had was Patisandhi Chitta. That is a part of viññāṇa. Okay, so that's the first thought. And after you had the first thought, then that thought can't exist after that, because now you are already born. And then what happened? You have to have subsidiary, incidental consciousnesses. That is what we call by eye, ear, tongue, nose, body, mind, consciousness. They are the things that happen after that. But you still have you still have the viññāṇa sota. Now, Chuti Chitta was the last thought, and then that's it. And then you're gonna have the Patisandhi Chitta, which means the first thought in this life. But Patisandhi Chitta will be transformed into viññāṇa sota. So that means when you don't take objects, that means when you don't take an image, when you don't take a sound, when you don't take a smell, taste, contact, a thought, your thought, I would say your thought will be a viññāṇa sota. Viññāṇa sota means consciousness stream. Okay, so that means when you sleep, I guess you don't have a dream, you won't dream. At that point, you are not taking objects unless you are dreaming. So at that time, what you have is the viññāṇa sota, right? So you have viññāṇa sota when you are up, when you wake up, you get to see other objects. Then you have the other 6 consciousnesses. So when we say what is viññāṇa in the Parissamuppada context, it is both Patisandhi Chitta and the viññāṇa sota. Okay, so now this is what we have to understand. Now, what is Patisandhi viññāṇa? It's also viññāṇa, say viññāṇa. So there are 19 Patisandhi viññānas. Now, it's very interesting to learn actually. There are 19 Patisandhi viññānas. Now, I would tell you, this is Abhidhamma actually. The first one is Ahetuka Akusala Vipaka Santirana Chitta, which means now it is rootless, and it is done with immoral, unwholesome things, and then it's a Vipaka Chitta. And then Ahetuka Kusala Vipaka Santirana Chitta. That means it is rootless, but it has been done with wholesome Vipaka Chitta, right? So the Kusala and Akusala, but they are rootless. Now I would tell you the difference. All the animals, that means all the beings in the apayas, we call them Naraka, hells, Tirachana, which means animal kingdom, Preta means the ghost, and the Asura means the demon. So all these beings were born with the Patisandhi Chitta call, rebirth consciousness call, Ahetuka Akusala Vipaka Santirana Chitta. Then who are the beings who were born with Ahetuka Kusala Vipaka Santirana Chitta? They are the humans who were born with different physical issues. There are beings who were born with a lot of physically disabled, situations. I don't want to name them. So they had this second Patisandhi Chitta, which we call by Ahetuka Kusala Vipaka Santirana Chitta. Still, I don't think our Patisandhi Chitta was discussed, because you are people, you don't have any, you don't have a lot of physically disabled stuff. But here, what we learned so far were 2 Patisandhi Chittas. The first Patisandhi Chitta considers the beings in the 4 woeful states, I would say, the apayas, Naraka, Tirachana, Peta, Asura. And the second Patisandhi Chitta, Ahetuka Kusala Vipaka Santirana Chitta, is what the beings who were born in human worlds as humans, but with different physical deformations. Then who are we? Where is our Patisandhi Chitta? This is what we have to understand. Sahetuka Mahavipaka Chittas. So those humans who were born with good roots, Alobadosamo. Okay. Now, the humans who were born with different difficulties, it is said that the Patisandhi Chitta they are having, called Ahetuka Kusala Vipaka Santirana Chitta, has no good or bad roots. Because they didn't have good or bad roots, they were having physical difficulties. But those who had good roots, I would say Aloba, Adu Samoha, they were born without any issues. I think most of the humans, they are part of that. So your Patisandhi Chitta is Sahetuka Mahavipaka Chitta, which is a part of the Kusala Chittas. And there are 8 actually. And there are 9 other Patisandhi Chittas which apply to different higher beings, Brahmas. Sahetuka Rupavachara Vipaka Chittas. So those are the beings who were born in the Rupavachara worlds. And Sahetuka Arupavachara Vipaka Chittas, there are 4. They are the beings who are born in the Arupavachara. So there are 19 Patisandhi Chittas. Now, the reason why I mentioned this to you is that when you say viññāṇa in the Patisamuppada, part of that viññāṇa is Patisandhi viññāṇa, and then the viññāṇa sota. So these are the 2 things that reflect the viññāṇa in the Patisamuppada. And then you know what happens when you had the Patisandhi Chitta after, because you can't live with Patisandhi. You only reborn with the Patisandhi Chitta. After that, you should have lot of other chittas, viññāṇa. So we call them other mere consciousness types. I would say Chakku, Sota, Gana, Jivha, Kaya, Mana. So they are just support the viññāṇa sota. Okay. Okay. Any questions so far? I hope I talk a little bit deeper things today, because I have to talk about. Before I see any comments here, I have an interesting Dhammapada stanza. Dhammapada stanza 41. Achirang vatayang kayo pataving adisessati. Chuddo apeta viññāno nirattangva kalingaram. Here we can see the word viññāna. Now we know the body will lie on the ground. I mean, this was discussed at the time of the Buddha. At that time, when you die, your viññāna will traverse to another body, and then will be reborn with the support of the Patisandhi viññāna, and then you have the viññāna sota. So what are the other things we can discuss about viññāna? Now we have to talk about the what we call conditioning part of the viññāna and the namarupa. Okay, so I have a sutta called sutta, which is mentioned in the Anguttara Nikaya 3.76. It says, the interplay of karma, consciousness, craving, and rebirth. Now we know viññāna has a lot of the what you call the contents of viññāna. Contents of viññāna are a lot of karmas, right? Seeds of karma. So that is why viññāna is very powerful, and then which travels when you die as Patisandhi Chitta. After that, it will become viññāna sota. Then again, it will become consciousnesses. When you die again, you will have Chuti, and then again, you will have Patisandhi. Now, this particular sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 3.76, discusses about the interplay of karma, consciousness, craving, and rebirth. I would say it's kind of a memorable metaphor. It's a discussion between monk Ananda and the Buddha. Now, monk Ananda says to the Buddha, one speaks lot of becoming. How does becoming take place? So the becoming means what do you call becoming? Bhava, right? How does bhava take place? The Buddha says, Anand, karma is the field. Now just imagine a field. Now the field is karma. So this is none other than the sankhara, right? Sankhara means karma. Consciousness is the seed. Now consciousness is the seed. Now if we can make it to kind of a cultivation of a certain crop, let's say you cultivate rice, the whole field is karma, okay, the whole field. And the crops that you plant in the field, now they are what we call by the consciousness, okay, because there are many consciousness types, as I said to you, Chuti, Patisandhi, Viññāṇa, Sota, and other sensory consciousness types. And craving is the moisture for consciousness. Pretty interesting. Now you have the seeds, but you need some moisture for your seeds, and that moisture is given with craving. Actually, this is what happens when you have viññāṇa. You need some tanha to to work, to play, to work very well. That's why the people who have viññāṇa traverse from one life to the other life with the support of tanha, right? Viññāṇa cannot travel very fast without viññāṇa cannot run successfully without the support of tanha, craving. So craving is the moisture, and hindered by ignorance. Avijja is the main cause, right? Starting point. So it's very interesting. So thus there is re-becoming. So bhava appears because of these three things. So there is a field is karma, and you have the seeds called consciousness, and seeds cannot grow very well without the moisture. So if you see seeds to be the consciousness is supported by the craving, that is moisture for the seeds. And then what happens is there is hindrance called ignorance. So this is how the bhava happens, our re-becoming happens. Okay. Now, in one of the very famous suttas in the Samyutta Nikaya, 12.67, we call them Nala Kala Apyo Sutta, sheaves of reeds discourse. It's a discussion between Arahant Sariputta and Mahakotitas. There are two famous distinguished arahants. They were discussing about how to understand the interdependency of consciousness and name and form, nama, rupa, and viññāṇa. So how do we understand the interdependency between these two? Let me quote for you. Kinnuko avuso sariputta, this is Arahant Mahakotita. Kinnuko avuso sariputta, sayang katang viññāṇaṃ, parang katang viññāṇaṃ, sayang katancha parang katancha viññāṇaṃ, udahu asayankarang aparankarang adicca samuppanna viññāṇa. Now, Arahant Mahakotita wants to know the origin of consciousness. Kinnuko avuso sariputta sayang katang viññāṇa. Well, Reverend Sariputta, is consciousness, which means viññāṇa, made by oneself, which means now if we talk to ourselves, have we ever talked to us in a way that, have I made my own consciousness? If you talk to yourself, have you made your consciousness, your viññāṇa? Parang katang viññāṇa, or by another. Was my viññāṇa, by this viññāṇa which came through, the Jyoti Chitta, Patisandhi Chitta, Viññāṇa Sota, and the sensory consciousnesses, were those consciousnesses made by somebody else for me? Or sayang katancha parang katancha viññāṇa, or by both myself and somebody else? Udahu asayankarang aparankarang adicca samuppannam viññāṇa, or does it arise by chance, randomly, not made by oneself or another? So Arahant Mahakotita wants to wants Arhat Sariputta to explain the origin, the real origin of consciousness. This is how Arhat Sariputta explains to Arhat Mahakoti. Don't think that Arhat Mahakoti doesn't know the origin. Probably they have a good discussion just to make sure that Dharma is in real action. Nako auso kottita sayang katang viññāṇaṃ na parang katang viññāṇa na sayang katancha parang katancha viññāṇa napi asayankarang aparankarang adicca samuppannang viññāṇa apicha nama rupa paccaya viññāṇanti. Now this is the real answer. Nako auso kottita sayang katang viññāṇa. Reverend Kottita, viññāṇa or consciousness is not made by oneself, right? So you can't think to yourself, your viññāṇa was made by you. I can't say that my viññāṇa was made by me. This is what he says. No by another. No by both oneself and another. It was not created by one of my friends, some other people, or neither of I and those people. Nor does it arise by chance. It doesn't arise by chance. No random appearance. Not made by oneself or another. Rather, name and forms are conditions for consciousness. It is because of the interdependency of nama and rupa, consciousness arises. Now you probably stumble thinking, then how come the nama rupa came here? Because normally we say viññāṇa paccaya nama rupa, but as I said to you at the beginning, in the Abhidhamma, it says viññāṇa causes nama rupa causes viññāṇa. So they are interdependent. Okay, so viññāṇa is not a creation of individuals. It was created, condition caused by another condition. It could be either nama rupa or either sankhara. Sankhara paccaya viññāṇaṃ or nama rupa paccaya viññāṇaṃ. It could be either way. It depends on certain person's life, certain person's birth. Now, it's interesting. Now, Arhat Mahakottita wants Arhat Sariputta to give an example, like a simile. Tena havuso upamang te karissāmi. Upama ya pide kacce viñño purisa bhāsitassa attang jānāti. Seyatapi auso dve nalakalapiyo anyamanyang nisāya titteyu. Well then, Reverend, I shall give you a simile. For by means of a simile, some wise people understand the meaning of what is said. So that means similes are really interesting and necessary for many people. Interesting, easy to understand. Suppose there were two bundles of reeds leaning up against each other. Okay, they are leaning up each other. So two bundles. Eva meva ko avaso nama rupa paccaya viññāṇa. Viññāṇa paccaya nama rupa. Nama rupa paccaya salāyatanam. Salāyatana paccaya passo. Eva metassa kevalassa dukkhakkhandassa samudayo hoti. Tāsañce avaso nalakalāpiṃ ekam ākaddeya eka papateya. Aparance ākaddeya apara papateya. Now it's very interesting. In the same way, nama rupa are conditions for viññāṇa. Because of nama rupa, we can see viññāṇa. We also see that sankhara also causes viññāṇa to arise. Consciousness, viññāṇa, is a condition, paccaya, for name and form. Then again, not even nama rupa conditions viññāṇa, but also viññāṇa also conditions nama rupa. Name and form nama rupa are conditions for the sixth sense field, salayatana. The sixth sense fields are conditions for contact, passa. That is how this entire mass of suffering, dukkha, originates. Interestingly, if the first of those bundles of reeds were to be pulled away, the other would collapse. And if the other were to be pulled away, the first would collapse. So they all are mutually dependable. They are not independent. So now you have to understand your viññāṇa was not created by anybody. It is just a creation because of the interdependency of these conditions, these nidhanas. Now, if you understand this phenomenon, that nobody now a lot of people they think that they were blaming to themselves. Oh, I've been in the samsara for a long time because I may have done a lot of bad things. But the real thing to understand, the true thing to understand, is that it is not you. It is because these things, they are mutually arisen. So if we look at these mutually arisen conditions, then only we can stop the samsara path, samsara journey. Okay. So that is how Arhan Sariputta explained about the interdependency of the Nama Rupa and Viññāṇa and Nama Rupa to Arhan Mahakottita. Any questions so far? Yeah, please type in your questions under the comments. And we wanted to discuss about another. Now we all know what is viññāṇa in the Paටිsamuppada. So viññāṇa in the Paටිsamuppada means the both Patisandhi Chitta, which is traversing, which is coming from our last life. Sorry, I would say it's kind of the viññāṇa. The Patisandhi Chitta is the first thought. So what is happening is the Bhavanga Viññāṇa, because Choti Viññāṇa is a part of Bhavanga Viññāṇa Sota. Let's say Viññāṇa Sota. So this Viññāṇa Sota will become a Choti Chitta when you die, the last moment, and then the Viññāṇa Sota will become the Patisandhi Chitta as the first thought, first Viññāṇa in this life, and then the Viññāṇa Sota will become different other sensory consciousnesses, Chakku Sota, Gana, Jivha, Kaya, Mana. This is how we live. And when we die, then again, Choti Chitta, Viññāṇa Sota will become a Choti Chitta, and then Viññāṇa Sota will become Patisandhi Chitta, then again sensory consciousnesses. So Viññāṇa Sota means, I think that would be a nice term. Viññāṇa Sota is a kind of a changing stream of our consciousness. This is what traverses, but it will take different forms when it plays our life situations. When we die, it will become Choti Chitta. When we are reborn, it will become Patisandhi Chitta. When we sleep, it will become again Viññāṇa Sota, Bhavanga. This another term is Bhavanga. And then when we take objects, it will become Pancha Viññāṇa, right? Now in the Abhidhamma, we understand in the Chitta Viti, it says when you sleep without a dream, you have Bhavanga or Viññāṇa Sota. But when you dream, you have something through Manodwara, then you are breaking your Bhavanga stream, and then for some time, and then the Pancha Viññānas are in action. Then again, you sleep back again, you are having no dream, and then you go back to the Viññāṇa Sota, right? So this keeps going until you die. And your Viññāṇa Sota then again will become the Choti Chitta when you die. When you pass away, right, the moment you will have a next life, and the first thought Viññāṇa in that life is Patisandhi Chitta, which is a form of Viññāṇa Sota, then again. And then again, you will have other Pancha Viññānas are in play. So this is how we have to understand the whole thing. Maybe I'm going to show you a slide about the Viññāṇa Sota so that you will get a good sense of what it is. Let me take a look. I'll take a moment of time. So please post your questions in the meantime. I hope I found it. I'll show you. Okay, so okay, and here you can see how it works. I'm going to go to a certain slide here. Okay, so look, you can see the stream of Bhavanga. We call it Viññāṇa Sota also, Bhavanga Sota, Viññāṇa Sota. Now, when you are sleeping, what activates is a reflection of the Viññāṇa Sota. We call them Bhavangas. But when you wake up, and then when you are taking objects, then what happens? The Bhavanga process, Viññāṇa Sota process is paused for a moment, and then it will take the particular object and then the Viññānas, and then there will be thoughts in the following. So what we need to understand is this term Pancha Viññāna and the Viññāna Sota. So Viññāna Sota is what traverses with changes when we die by taking different forms. And when we are born again, then we have this Patisandhi Chitta, which is also a form of the Viññāna Sota, because we can't live in this life without taking objects. So then again we have Pancha Viññāna. So as I explained to you, Viññāna in the Patissamuppada means Viññāna, the Viññāna Sota and the Pancha Viññāna. So Viññāna Sota means Chuti Chitta, Patisandhi Chitta, and different other forms of the Viññāna Sota. So it is particularly the Patisandhi Chitta and the Pancha Viññāna. So this is what we had to understand by the Viññāna in the Patissamuppada. So none of the Nidanas, none of the links are independent. So they all are dependent each other. That is why you can't say your Viññāna was formed by you. But you may have added a lot of karma to that. You may have added a lot of tanha to that. Then again, upadana to that. But your Viññāna was arisen, dependably. It is mutually constructed because of the other nidanas. I would say Namarupa plus Sankara. So Sankara Pachya Viññāṇam. But here, the other factors, the following factor, Namarupa, is mutually dependent on each other. I would say Namarupa, Viññāṇa and Namarupa, they are mutually arisen. Sometimes Viññāna causes Namarupa to arise. This is what happens in most cases. And sometimes it could be the other way, the reverse way. Namarupa causes Viññāna to arise. So we have to understand. We don't see this in other Nidanas unless except the first one, because we don't say Avijja is the first cause. We say Avijja is the starting point. Some suttas deal with this and saying that Avijja has a cause, Asava. Asava, taints or defilements, and Avijja, they are mutually, arisen. That means sometimes it could be Avijja, which helps taints to arise, Asava to arise. Sometimes Asava help Avijja to arise. So those two are mutually constructed, dependent. And then the other thing we can see about this mutually dependent nature is the Namarupa and Viññāna. So Viññāna and Namarupa, they are mutually dependent, and Namarupa and Viññāna, they are mutually dependent. In other places, what we see is not the mutual dependence. What we can see is the conditioning. Now, if you see Sankara to Viññāna, and then we will omit Namarupa and Viññāna, we will see Salayatana to Passa to Vedana to Tanha. They all are conditioning each other. But the mutual dependency is what we can see with the Asava and Avijja plus Namarupa and Viññāna and Namarupa. Okay, I think there are no questions, and I hope that we discuss about viññāṇa in the Parisampada, as well as how do we see viññāṇa in the Pali texts, other texts in general. We talked about different layers of viññāṇa. We talked about viññāṇa as a part of the sense faculties, viññāṇa dhatu, and then we talked about viññāṇa as an ayatana. Also, we talked about viññāṇa as one of the parts of 5 aggregates. We also talk about viññāṇa as something that will be stopped when you attain the Nibbana. Buddha always encouraged us to, not to delight in the viññāṇa. Try to see what my viññāṇa is, especially when you see the mere things, mere sights, mere sounds, mere smell, mere taste, mere contact, mere thoughts. You need to bring anicca dukkha anatta perspective, change, then the dissatisfactory nature or unsatisfactory nature, and no ownership nature into each aggregate. So viññāṇa is a part of that experience. If you can bring that understanding perspective to your every experience, which you can see through the 5 khandhas, where you can see viññāṇa as a part of, you can definitely get rid of unnecessary viññāṇas until you attain the Nibbana. Because Buddha says we have to stop viññāṇa to traverse, because this viññāṇa is supported by the moisture, the craving. So if you can cut down on the craving, kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha, then we will not support viññāṇa to play. Okay, so let's share all the good karmas with the departed relatives and the deities and nagas. We'll wrap this up. If you have any questions that you may have at this point, please type in them and still answer them. Otherwise, we will share the good karmas. So may all the good karmas we've been accumulating in all these ways be transferred to all the departed relatives who passed away in the name of all of us. May they be happy and peaceful. May they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Idammi ñāti nang hotu sukhita hontu ñāteyo. Idammi ñāti nang hotu sukhita hontu ñāteyo. Idammi ñāti nang hotu sukhita hontu ñāteyo. Let's share all the good karmas with the deities and the nagas, powerful beings. May all they share these good karmas. May they be happy and peaceful. May they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Ettavatāca ammehi samvatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya akasattha ca bhummattha deva naga mahintika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhangtu lokasasanang chirang rakkhangtu desanang chirang rakkhangtu mang paranti. Finally, let's make a great wish. May all the good karmas we've been accumulating in all these ways be helpful for all of us to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Abhivadana silis nichang vadha pachayino chataru dhamma vadhanti ayuvannu sukhang balang ayura rukya sampatti sangha sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminati samicchato. Okay, have a good day ahead of you, and then at the same time have a good night, evening to all of you joining from here in Ottawa, other parts of Canada and the US. Thank you. Have a good day. We'll see you with another discussion about the next part called by Namarupa next Monday. Thank you.